For you to understand what is happening, think of it on a micro level. Think of it as your own personal spending. What happens to you when you live beyond your means? You have to borrow to cover that gap, isn't it? What happens if you're continually busting your budget year in, year out, or month in, month out? You're going to end up with outsized debts. So this is the reality. At the end of the Moi administration, when Kibaki was coming to power, he inherited around 600 billion worth of debt.
Yes.
And then Kibaki pushed it up to around 1.8 trillion. So by the time Kibaki left, he had accumulated 1.2 plus the other 600, so 1.8. And then after Kibaki, Uhuru came, and we basically exploded our debt from that under 2 trillion shillings to the current 9 trillion. So it actually jumped almost 500%. So, and remember, debt is a sovereign charge on, it's a charge on the sovereign, what is called the consolidated fund services, that you have to pay debt first before anything else. So if you look at the numbers coming out of government today, or for the past 2 months, July and August of this new financial year, is we have collected taxes and all that money that government, basically income for government, is around 240 billion for July and 240 billion for August. Out of this 240 billion, around 60%, which is 100 and in the order of around 130, 120,
yes,
has gone towards paying debt. You remember we have a 9 trillion, which is now 10 trillion,
which
because
is
of the weakening of
which is now 10.6 trillion.
Yes.
Yes.
So out of every monthly expenditure, we're actually spending more paying back debt. Yes, paying back debt than we are spending on paying for teachers, paying for police, paying for keeping the lights on, and so on and so forth. So we are spending more to pay debt that we've already accrued. And that's a sort of the meal around the government's neck. That the reality is we have to pay for debt. Remember, like I said, the government has to, the first charge on government expenditure is paying debt. And we have a debt that has ballooned from 2013 to today from 2 trillion to 10 trillion shillings. If you were to go back to your own sort of micro situation, imagine that scenario where you're earning your money 5,000 shillings a month, but 3,000 has to go to pay for debt that you spent in the previous month, and so on and so forth. Of course, you're going to end up with problems, and that is where we find ourselves. That the reality is government has to borrow even more to pay for the 10 trillion debt. That is where we find ourselves. That's the reality of the budget. We can talk about all these other issues, the politics and so on and so forth, but the truth of the matter, the hard financial facts are we spent this money, we did all manner of things, we built hospitals, we built the railway, we built the roads and so on and so forth, but now it's payback time. We've hit the limits of what needs to be done, and that is why these numbers will get worse. Actually, one of the things that is actually creating jitters at the moment is by June of next year, which is the end of this financial year, you remember the famous 2 billion euro bond from 2014 is due.
That is due, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have to pay for that. So we'll go back to the market and borrow to pay that 2 trillion.
But you like,
it's either that,
yes,
or we default.
But you like to think that indeed then the appetite